Welcome back to another edition of the Deep Cover Podcast. I'm your host, Omar Zaran. Thank you, as always, for joining me for another edition of the show. This week, we kind of wanted to go a little off the wall, and it starts with a little bit of a story that came with this idea of this episode that we're going to have today. So, a week or so ago, a friend of mine was rewatching the Harry Potter series of movies, and she was talking to me about it, and I was like, well, let me go ahead and rewatch it myself because it's been about a year or so since I've done so. And I was watching the first movie, The Sorcerer's Stone, and a bunch of Quidditch scenes come up. And I start thinking with my sports brain about how it would adapt or how it correlates to our modern sports. And I thought, you know what, this would be a really fun conversation to have and, a good way to fill some stuff right before the NFL season starts. So to do that today, I am joined by my longtime friend. We've known each other for so many years now, Gina Burns. Gina, thanks for joining me.
Oh, no problem. I'm happy to help out with anything Harry Potter related.
So, a little quick backstory. Gina and I used to work together at multiple places, and we really kind of became friends through that and through a mutual love of Harry Potter. So, I think one could say is the foundation of our friendship. So, I want to kind of talk some Quidditch stuff here, and for those who don't know, who aren't like super locked into Harry Potter, Quidditch is the sport, right, of that wizarding world that was created. So we kind of want to talk about how this relates to modern day sports and some random ideas I've had in the years that I've been watching the series or the movies and reading the books and all that. So, let's start with the sport itself. You have all these different elements going on. You have these chasers trying to throw the quaffle into the hoops. You have the beaters trying to knock the bludgers out. You have the seeker going for the golden stitch. A lot of stuff's going on, right? So from when you've seen it depicted, what sports does Quidditch remind you of the most?
This one was a little bit tricky because there was I mean, there's a little bit different of positions in any sport
Right, right,
that you
for
would
sure.
ever think of, but for some reason, my brain kind of automatically thinks soccer. I
Mm,
think just less players on a Quidditch field, but still in terms of positions, it makes the most sense in my brain. It
yeah,
also Most soccer players are also hands-on,
right.
whereas, everyone on a Quidditch field, all 7 people are hands-on.
Mhm.
So, in terms of that, like, they're all kind of touching one ball, whereas, they have multiple in Quidditch, but they're all hands-on.
Yeah, it's kind of a thing where the keeper chaser dynamic feels very very much like soccer. And the formation aspect where they're three of them, they're kind of doing this 3-on-3 thing. In that way, it kind of feels like hockey in a strange sense, right? When there's like a power play or something. And yet you have like the weird bludger element, like this rogue thing that's trying to attack people, and then you have the incorporation of a bat, which you could say feels like baseball or cricket, and it's just and then you got the patrolling seeker who's kind of going around, which really doesn't remind me of any sport.
What threw me off because I'm
Yeah.
like, you can kind of put every other position in something similar in our world,
Yeah.
but when it comes to a seeker, I'm like, there's no random player that just goes around the whole field just looking for a tiny little thing just to
The
float
closest
by.
thing I the closest thing I could get is that in basketball you have like specialists, right? Where you have like a person who they specialize in shooting a corner three-pointer. That's like, so on offense they park in one area waiting for the ball, and then their sole function is to shoot that ball when they get it. And they're kind of a liability in every other aspect. So that's the closest thing I could think to a seeker. But the irony is that that player in basketball is generally unimportant. Whereas you can argue the seeker is probably the most important position in Quidditch from just a point generation perspective, right? Like when you catch a snitch, it's 150 points. I mean, that's 15 goals from a chaser. So
Well, so basically what you're saying is he's a special teams. That's what he is.
right, yeah, yeah. It's kind of like a punt
Because
returner. Right. Yeah,
I,
that's a
I
good point.
mean, you're special. I mean, that's the most special of a specialty position I can, I guess, kind of relate it to.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know. He's our punter.
That's
We only
a good point. Like, especially if you equate it to like a returner, where it's like they could turn nothing into 7 points instantly in one play. If it breaks right for them, and in that sense, it's such a huge moment given the time it takes to get it, and that the seeker would get for catching the golden snitch. So maybe I think we got there. I think it might be a kick returner or somebody on special teams in American football. I want to talk about the setup for Hogwarts' Quidditch teams, the house teams. So obviously you got the four houses, each house has their own team. And I'm like looking at this and I'm like, when Harry gets selected to the team, and I was like, all right, this dude's 11 years old. And you got like he's playing with all these people who are like 15, 16, 17. And I was like, all right, what if we had like a JV and a V at varsity, right? Where it's like your first to third years are on the one team, and then your fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh years are on the other. And then now you've created an 8-team division where I think it gives you a little bit more intrigue and a little bit more like, wow, can you believe the younger Ravenclaws actually won the Quidditch Cup this year? Wow, what a miracle. And it's just like, just from a school newspaper reporting perspective, it would be incredible. Now, tell me how far-fetched and ridiculous this idea is, or am I maybe onto something here?
No, I always thought it was really odd that not only did they only have one team per house, but that's all we ever saw. We didn't see anything else. So it
Mm,
was it would be nice to really have like a JV and V team, just like you said, like split it up. And then, the JV could always, they have mentors at that point too, because, I would assume that more than 7 people in the entire house would like a chance to be on the Quidditch team.
right,
You got
right.
7 people, 7. Like,
It makes no sense. Yeah.
and it's not like you have like on reserve or inactive players that you can, throw into the game or something. Like it's literally just them.
That
So
that makes a really good point. In this universe, they have no accounting for injuries.
no, 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 not at
Like you're
all.
just magic. Well, I guess you could argue, like, well, your magical school, you're magically going to be able to heal somebody. As we know, in the second year, Harry's entire arm disappeared, and he had to regrow it in the hospital wing overnight. But so maybe that's why. But it's like you could have. What if somebody falls off their broom and they're traumatized? Like what? I'm done with this,
Then they
and
would just
then
wipe their memory, so you're
so
good. You
they're
have
no
no
longer
memory.
traumatized.
And you go
What
back on
a
the Quidditch field the next day, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, they're back." And she's like, "Well, I have no idea what happened. It's great. I'm fine. I love Quidditch." Yeah.
what a great way to handle mental health, by the way, just to
There
forget
is
it ever happened. It's
Hey,
awesome.
there's always something that magic can cure. Everything. Everything. I'd probably even be good at Quidditch with magic, so
Yeah. One thing I always appreciated was there wasn't a gender divide in Quidditch, right? Because
in anything, really, but
yeah, for
Quidditch
sure.
too.
Yes, and you think, well, it makes sense because they're all on brooms. Really, the broom is the great equalizer in terms of speed, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, you have some physical strength differences, but a lot of times you can make up for that in speed. And in the later years, we see Ginny join the Quidditch team and her being really good at that, and just kind of good evidence of that as well. And
Yeah.
so just something I was like, oh, that's cool. It's like a equal footing in that way, and you're not saying, well, you can't do this because of a physical advantage or disadvantage or whatever the case, and it just it's a little bit more equal, which I think is nice.
Didn't
Um,
they have, like, other I wasn't, like, the Hollywood Harpies, like, an all-girl team?
yeah, yeah,
So,
they
they
were
do
all women. Yeah.
exist outside of Hogwarts, and, like, you can obviously tell that, there's a bigger universe to Quidditch than 7 whole players in a house at Hogwarts. So,
Yeah, I mean, I win. That's one of the things just from me liking sports for is like we get a couple mentions here and there. They mention Victor Crumb in the fourth book. They mention the Harpies. They mention Ron's favorite team, Chudley something. I can't. The
yeah.
name escapes me. And there's a couple little things here and there. Slughorn mentions somebody, who plays for a professional team. And I was like, I would have liked a little bit more lore because if you think about it, obviously it's based in Britain, so Britain's soccer obsessed. Your club kind of defines who you are. And I was like, you're trying to tell me this couldn't have come up a little bit more in conversation, between, especially like the adults, especially when they're not like breaking down the match that just happened the previous week, especially in the first three books and most of the fourth book before Voldemort returns. Because then, you're at
Yeah.
war, the demon is out, and so who cares about Quidditch in that aspect?
Yeah.
Um, so in the Goblet of Fire, we get introduced to a couple new schools, right? It expands the universe. You got Durmstrang and you got Beauxbaton and Ilvermorny in the Fantastic Beasts series. So now you have
Mhm.
four primary magic schools that are mentioned in this world. And then I thought, okay, well, we have the Olympics, we have the World Cup. In soccer, we have the Champions League in Europe. And I was like, why couldn't that be a thing? So you had like the Goblet of Fire, the Triwizard Tournament, right? And they bring these schools together or whatever. You try to tell me you couldn't do that for like a tournament in Quidditch? I feel like that's a slam dunk. So again, now maybe the American team is a little bit more difficult because distance, but
They're
for the three,
magic. They're
yeah, I know, just
magic.
apparate. You just make them apparate there, right? So, but I was like, yeah, wouldn't that be great? There's like, oh, great, this house is the Quidditch world champion, right? Now, what leads me to the question though, what is the reward in that aspect for being a Quidditch world champion? There has to be some stakes, right? So, like, what would they even offer? That's fine. It was like you get like some new brooms or something. Like I have no idea what they would even offer outside of a cash prize.
I wouldn't assume they offered much, judging by the fact that in like 2 weeks later, after Crumb's team wins,
Yeah.
he's literally at Hogwarts competing for the
How how
Triwizard.
how crazy is
So
that? By the way, you really think about it. Like, here's this dude. He's like this prodigy, this Quidditch prodigy, right? He's him, right? He's gonna be this big deal. He's in the World Cup. He just dazzles everybody, and then he goes to risk his life for this tournament. It's just like if I'm him, I was like, man, do I really want to jeopardize my future by putting my name in this goblet right now? And he very nearly comes to death multiple times throughout that time, and I was like, what? Imagine like if he like you would imagine a professional athlete would have an agent, right? And then be like, hey, dude, how about we don't do that? How about people die in this tournament and you're about to make a bunch of money playing this game professionally? And I'm just like, we needed somebody in his ear. Karkaroff should have been in his ear. Be like, hey man,
yeah, he
you're
was
you're
the
awesome.
Death Eater.
Yeah, you're awesome, dude. But like, let's not do. We need you for the cause. You
Uh,
know.
it's almost like they were he might have even had an agent, and they were like, dude, you made like no money in the World Cup, so you got to take this. And he's like, I don't want to, it's beneath me. And they're like, no, 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 you need to go win this Triwizard tournament. There's going to be mermaids, there's going to be dragons, but you'll get more money than the World Cup because why else would that man be there? He's a full grown man. They're
Right.
children.
Here's another thing that's always struck me, and I never thought about it when I was reading the books, but I thought about it when I was watching the movies, and it's about the Triwizard Tournament and how it's basically the worst spectator event ever created because
Nobody
the
sees
first
anything.
you don't see shit. It's just like you literally like the dragon one is the closest you get to seeing something, right?
And
Because
I
dragons
mean,
they got the lair, whatever. Yeah, but then the dragons start flying all over the place, so it's limited. The second one is terrible because they're going to the depths of this lake, and especially the movie, they're just kind of just chilling, like
that's how
la di
they were
da.
with the dragon too, where it's like Harry's missing. Harry's missing. Oh, there he is! And then the same thing when he emerged from the water. It's like, okay, how many times are we going to go sitting there from a quiet crowd, be excited for 1 second, and it's like, oh well, okay.
Like, imagine being in the crowd for any of the three events, and then you're just, especially the last one, it's like nothing's happening for like an hour or two, and then all of a sudden, oh, Cedric's dead. Like, that's cool. Sounds good. It's just like you said, it's like a whiplash in a weird way, right?
I mean, you don't see anything, and I mean, once again, they're magic. You could have put some cameras or like cast something on a I don't
Right.
know,
Yeah.
anything out of thin air. Like, you're magic. Give the audience what they want. They don't want to sit there and just sit there. Give them something to do.
Yeah, it's always bothered me, and I think I was talking to the same friend of mine, and I was like, I really think Goblet of Fire might be my least favorite movie of all of them. But I actually really like the book. It's so it was like it's the biggest gap for me in terms of enjoyment between what the book was and what the movie ended up being. And there's a lot of like theatrical privileges that they took with that one, and and they cut out a lot of stuff because it was the first like big book in the series, right? The first three were kind of smaller,
Mhm.
and I was just like, so it's always bothered me when the Triwizard Tournament scenes come up, and I was just like, it's like, why are we even watching this, dude? Then they're like, they're taking action on the events, like they're betting on it, which leads me to this other thing. I know I'm all over the place. I'm not even sticking to our notes anymore, but it's fine. Like, I wish I could have gotten it on the Quidditch betting angle, right? Like, how would you? It feels like such a tough sport to handicap because the snitch is such a volatile thing. Because like, imagine trying to do a point spread in Quidditch. Like, oh yeah, we think Slytherin's favored to win by 130 points, and then it's just like it has to be impossible. And I wondered, like, you had some enterprising individuals at Hogwarts in the series. So you trying to tell me Fred and George wouldn't have tried to become bookies and try to fleece every student for all the money that they're worth?
Well, and not only that, but I mean, we already saw Voldemort, do the rogue bludger. So, I mean, if
Right.
he does that, anyone can fix a game with any ball, any snitch, anything, any player. So I feel like it's a very easy game to fix to get it where you want it to be.
Right.
But betting, I mean, if you're playing an honest game, betting's impossible. It's way too
Yeah.
unpredictable of a game when it's played, 100%
Oh, that's
legitimately.
that's the other thing. It's so easy to compromise this game. There's like
100%.
zero guardrails in place. It's
This
like
freaking professor did it right in front of them. So, I mean, a professor did it.
House Elf is,
And
is
here's
doing some shit with the
Dumbledore.
bludger. It's like, oh, it's fine, man. No big deal. Dementors on the pitch, like, which is like the equivalent of a streaker at a soccer match, I guess. know?
I mean,
Uh,
like it, they've been through so much crazy stuff, and
right.
how many things could have been preventable if there was, a one person working some sort of security detail. Like,
Literally, like,
go
you guys
hire
just like,
house elves. Like, have the house
you
elves do
have a
all of
million
this.
of them in the kitchen, man. You're
Well, you
like,
could have brought Spew back into one of the movies, but who's
oh
keeping
my God.
track?
So, yeah, don't. That is another thing. That's, I think, another Goblet of Fire miss. Like, there's like multiple chapters and instances of spew throughout that book, and not even a mention. And I was just like, all right, cool, man. But I want to circle back to the Golden Snitch. Okay, it's
Yes.
is there a bigger cheat code ever devised? Because you're literally the game's almost over every single time because you have to be dominated by so much for it to just totally flip it. You have to be down by 160 or more for it not to matter. If the other team gets it, which to me is like in American football, that'd be like being down 7 touchdowns or something, right? And then somebody returns a punt for a touchdown. Oh, game's over actually, and you lose. So like this is just like a ridiculous cheat code, right? Like I understand it's hard to catch and everything, but is this the best way to end the game? Right? Somebody has to catch this thing.
Not when it's worth 150 points. Like, that's just game ending. It doesn't matter if you're in our
Right.
world, in a magical world, that's game ending. I mean, that's just it. It's game ending, like, nothing else
So
to it.
is that a better solution than having this thing be timed? Like to
Well,
have clocks.
and that's the thing that kinda comes along with this. So, say, they're both really, really good teams, nobody's catching the snitch, and, they're both just going points, points,
Mhm.
points, points. It's 4 hours later, they're still going, nobody's caught the snitch. Is
Right.
anyone gonna stop them? Like, are they
Right.
just gonna keep playing for hours on end? How does that get decided, after maybe I don't know, have a halftime and
Right.
evaluate how it's going or something. Like, I don't know, it just feels very strange to just not only that, but they can't even, switch players, so it's all 7 of
Yeah.
them for God knows how long.
Like, at what
And
point is fatigue a factor? You know? It's
yeah,
just
and
like
I mean, like, it's not like the snitch gets tired after an hour and says,
it
"Okay,
just
I'll
keeps
give you guys
going.
a break." Right, like, so, I mean, I think that, you know, that would be helpful to make it timed or divide it, or even if say you never catch the snitch, maybe if you hit, like if your team hits 150 points, then the game's over or something.
Oh, if, like, the
Like
margin exceeds 150,
yeah,
then
like, just
it's
the
like, "Yeah, it's done."
goals, like, if
Yeah.
they just, get 150 points worth of goals, but or even if you increased the amount of points per goal, because
Mhm.
the points for goal to snitch ratio, like, I feel like they're
15.
massively off.
It's, like, scoring 15 times equals catching the snitch once.
So
And
stupid. Like,
I was just like, "Okay."
that's why I'm saying you have to have at least one incredibly good team that can't catch the snitch, or two
Yeah.
really good teams that also can't catch it. So, but you need it
So
timed regardless. Like, unless you have really crappy teams and one good seeker, then you can just go. But
yeah,
I
imagine it's
mean,
like to our junior varsity example earlier, if like Hufflepuff Junior is playing Slytherin Junior, and then they're just a bunch of like first and second years don't know what the hell they're doing. It's just a bad crop of recruits that year. And then it's like it just goes on for hours on end, and then you're just like, all right, do I really? And then the thing from a spectator's perspective, like, man, how long is this thing going to go on for? I'm kind of done with this right now. I got things to do.
right. I mean, if it's like the JV team, that's like borderline child abuse too. Like, all these kids could be on the sidelines just crying, like, I want to
Right.
go home, but there's no replacement for you. You have to stay here.
Yeah.
Poor kids.
Now, so we talked about the point total. So I did like an exercise in my head where I was like, okay, if we had something like that in our sports to that would give you this obscene point total and warrant the ending of a game, what would it be? So like some thoughts I had was like, all right, 99-yard touchdown pass, um, like full court with somebody on you shot in basketball, a home run hitting 600 feet, and I was just like, but none of them warrant that dramatic of a point giveaway plus the ending of a game. And I think the ending of a game is the big one, right? Because it's like, it's it. You can't recover from it. So if you're fighting with somebody for the snitch and they get it and you don't, oh well, sorry about it. Try better next time.
Yeah, it essentially results in a really abrupt ending, regardless of where the game's at. If, say, you loaded everyone into the stands that took an hour to get everyone set and someone
Mhm.
catches it in 15 minutes. You
Yeah, so
literally took longer to get the crowd there, get all riled up, and then the game's over. Like,
well,
there needs to be
in that way, Gina, it's kind of like a boxing match, right? When that happens, because like a first round knockout, right? It's just like, oh, I just came here. Mike Tyson just beat the shit out of this guy. Now I'm going home. Sounds
but
good, I
at
guess.
that point, like, it would be cool to, go round 2. But
Right, right.
we've never gotten there because we have no idea how long any of the Quidditch matches were, because we never saw a full one,
There's
and
no
honestly, I
concept of
don't think I
time.
want to. Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
like
that's like another thing. If you're like a chaser or a beater or a keeper, really anyone but the seeker, you don't have the idea of a clutch moment doesn't exist for you because like there is no last second shot in Quidditch if you're a chaser, right? Because you're just trying to rack up points until that snitch rolls around, and really the seeker is the one who gets all the glory in that way. It's almost like like in football where everybody praises the QB, right? But no one cares about the running backs and linemen and whatever anymore. It's just all about the QB. It's kind of like that. And it's like, yeah, you can't say, man, remember when the clock was winding down and I threw the quaffle and it hit off the thing and went in? You can't say that. He's like, oh yeah, I scored this many points, so I set our seeker up in a good position to win us the game. And I was just like, that sounds terrible, because you
but
don't have a chance to have those high pressure situations.
I mean, at the same time, you have a chance, not as good of one, but you have a chance. But then again, we never saw enough of those positions to, if they were excited about something stupid, like maybe
Mhm.
we could be excited about that too, but we never got the chance to see anything other than, just, you know, random seeker or random chasers or whoever in the background. I mean, it was always seekers, which I'm not complaining. It was,
Right.
for the movie, but at the same time, I'm like, would have been cool to actually see everyone in action.
Yeah, the seeker to seeker thing when they're all going for they're going for the cinch is a great like one-on-one moment, right? It's almost like putting like in basketball when you have an isolation or a one-on-one matchup on the outside in football where it's just like, all right, it's me versus you. This is the goal here, and let's see who wants it more. And so from that aspect, it's pretty cool. But from like a team dynamic, yeah, like all the other six players are just kind of tossed to the side. And want to also acknowledge how hard it must be to play keeper in Quidditch. One, you're on the fucking broomstick and you're stationary. Two, you have to guard against three hoops. Three, somebody could just take their bat and the bludger and hit you with it without you even knowing, as we know happened to Oliver Wood in the first book.
Hmm.
So I'm just kind of like, I was like, yeah, that's a position that really doesn't get enough credit, which makes sense because that's how they are in soccer too. So with the keeper, you only care about the keeper when it's penalty shootout, and
Yeah.
and then every other time it's like this dude's a dummy. So just wanted to shout that out real quick. Um, now is the time for me to have my wacky idea. What if Quidditch was a time sport and you do have multiple snitch appearances throughout the time, but you'd have to decrease the value of the snitch. So, say instead of 150, it's 50 or 75 points. So it's still a very good amount that you have to score a lot to do it, but you introduce the time element, so you don't have the game that goes for 5 hours. And, it could be, hey, 1 minute left, we're tied. Now it's like, all right, who's going to score the squaffle before it ends? Right.
Hmm.
And I think that would be like a better viewing experience, right? Where it's just kind of like it's like there's tension and intensity to a beat, whereas like as currently constituted and diagrammed in the series, it was really more. Well, it ends when the seeker makes it end, and it's almost anticlimactic once that happens. Like you get the excitement of the seeker catching the stitch, like, oh, well, we're done, I guess. Whereas with a time game, you're building towards that final moment, right? And then you get to see if something happens. And then maybe seekers get desperate trying to find the snitch in that aspect as well. Like say you're down by 50. The team that's leading is trying to just kind of milk the clock, and try to play keep away, but the seeker becomes a great equalizer where they can get the snitch and win the game. I just think it's a different way of approaching it and maybe a better way, unless you disagree.
Well, I'm trying to think of my own crazy ideas
Okay.
because I'm thinking like, yeah, it needs to be timed, regardless of how you break it down. It needs to be timed, but like what it like make that points, ratio a little bit more equal and fair, but
Hmm.
decrease the snitch points and maybe require like 3 snitch catches or,
Mm.
say there's, 4 quarters in a match.
Right.
Say, everyone's 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes, that's the end of the quarter. If you didn't get
Uh-huh.
the snitch at all, okay, great. You just score like the normal points that you would,
Right.
score.
Mm.
Then, keep going. But if you hit 3, the game can end early. But if you don't hit 3 within, 4 quarters, then the game just ends, whether the snitch is caught or not, and you just finish with whatever points you actually scored. Like,
I'm not
keep the
mad at
snitch
that.
out of it. Like, I know it's, not the whole point of the game, but at the same time, like, it would not only give them an opportunity to catch the snitch still, but it would give them multiple. Like, it would kind of keep every, quarter, I guess,
Mm.
exciting and like something else to look forward to because at that point, like, no matter how long it goes on for, no matter if it's timed or not, all you're doing is sitting there waiting for one thing to
Mm.
happen. But, if you have another way of winning that doesn't involve only catching the snitch, like, it might be more exciting for everyone to actually pay attention to everyone rather than just what the seeker's doing.
Right. And also wonder if there's a way you could kind of enhance the beater experience. Like, do you reward them for, like, if they were to, hit the ball, the bludger towards somebody, and it kind of maybe knocks them off their broom? Do you get points for that? That now that would encourage violence, which is not
Or you
great.
would get a penalty, I don't know, but
Hmm.
it would what if they had a referee up there?
That's another
That
thing.
would
Like,
delay the game too. That would make for a really long game, get all these penalties.
oh, then, like, well, that's when you run into real problems because, like, you have a ref, and that's another element that you could compromise. You start again, magical world, start using magic to influence the way they call the game and make their decisions. And it's like, I think what we've learned from this conversation, Gina, is that Quidditch is a game with many fundamental holes uh, that that could
Yeah.
be adjusted. And of course, there's the world of an author, so it's not supposed to be fully thought out in that way. So it's almost like a half baked idea in some weird sense that have just had a really long runway. Um, but to kind of close out here, if you were to play Quidditch, right? What position do you think you'd want to play, and why?
Hmm. Well, since I related it closest to soccer,
Mhm.
I think I'd go with the position that I played. None. I would sit in the corner and just hope to God that nothing or nobody would come near me. I literally have pictures my mom took. Here's all the players over here, with the ball. I'm in the corner next to the
Oh my god.
goal. Like,
I
and
mean,
but if I really like say I actually got good at a position and
right.
was like, yeah, I'll do it.
Mm,
I think I would probably be a beater
mm.
because it's rough, with no pads, but once again, you can heal with magic. But I don't think I would mind beating beating a beater, beating another beater. So I think I would choose violence.
Yeah, just swinging the bat, right? It's like,
I
yeah,
mean,
it's all,
everyone else is chasing. That sounds exhausting. Everyone else is standing in front of a goal, rings in the
mm,
air, which sounds boring. And
yeah.
then a seeker, that's even more exhausting, and my eyes suck. Like, I would never see that thing. I am also very not fast. So, I mean, beaters just give me brute force, I guess. So,
If it
yeah.
for me, I think I'd probably go with Chaser. Just from, like, the goal scoring aspect, right? And the 3-on-3 aspect that just speaks to me.
Yeah.
I couldn't see being a beater because I was never really good at baseball, right? So I feel like I would swing and miss on a bludger more times than not, and then my team would hate me. And I think we agree about seekers. They're just kind of, they're just laying in the cut, kind of circling, waiting for, they're almost kind of like vultures in a weird way.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
honestly, like, it sounds like the most boring yet exhausting position, like,
well, yeah, you
I don't
always
I
have to be focused, but you're not really doing much. That's the crazy thing about it.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, like, focusing and not doing anything, those don't go hand in hand for my brain. My brain's like, "You cannot do both of those things at one time." So I would probably just leave the field, like, "I'm just gonna go get a drink real fast."
There you go. Yeah.
Someone else catches the snitch, and I'm like, "Thank God it's over. Oh my god, I did not wanna go back in."
Moral of the story is that Eugene are not cut out to play Quidditch, and that's okay. So that's what we learned today. But uh, Gina, this has been super fun. I knew it would be because as I was putting the topics together, I was just like, I was like, oh yeah, this is a good one. This is a good one. And I look at the final list and I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be a fun episode. And it's to give you all a preview. This is basically how Gina and I became friends. Just theorizing about weird stuff like this, and I couldn't think of anybody better to talk to me about this. So thank you for carving out the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'll happily go over Harry Potter stuff with you anytime.
Awesome. All right. So thanks again, Gina. And thank you, everybody, for listening to another edition of the Deep Cover Podcast. If you liked what you heard, we don't always talk about Harry Potter, but maybe we'll make it more of a thing. You can follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and other podcast apps as well. Until next time, I'm your host, Omar Zaran. Thanks again for tuning in for another edition of the Deep Cover Podcast.